Have you ever remembered something so clearly, only to find out it never actually happened? That's the Mandela Effect, and it might just be messing with your memory of brands, movies, and even the Bible. On tonight's episode of the Cosmic Fold Paranormal Highway, we're taking a brief detour. Normally, we roll state by state down a back road of ghosts, cryptids, and time slips. But tonight, we're swerving off the asphalt and into something far more universal. The highways of the human mind, where memory bends, sacred stories glitch, and reality takes the scenic route. We'll show you how the Mandela Effect helps explain why billions believe Eve gave Adam an apple, and why so few remember the part where men and women were created equally. The Mandela Effect is the collective misremembering of facts or events. It was named after people around the world vividly remembered that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s, years before he actually passed away in 2013. Examples of Mandela effects are everywhere. People remember the Berenstain Bears as Berenstain, the Monopoly man having a monocle he never did, Darth Vader saying, "Luke, I am your father," when he actually said, "No, I am your father." This isn't just faulty memory, it's memory shaped by culture, repetition, and even suggestion. Scientists have studied this phenomenon and found that false memories often arise when information is repeated frequently, when trusted figures reinforce it, or when visual representations override textual accuracy. In short, what we see and hear over time becomes our truth, even when it's wrong. So what happens when this same effect creeps into our most sacred texts? If you ask most people how humans were created in the Bible, they'll say something like, God made Adam first, then took a rib and made Eve. But that's only half the story. There are actually two creation stories in Genesis. Most people remember only one, and that selective memory has reshaped theology, gender roles, and art. Genesis chapter 1, verse 27 says, "So God created mankind in his own image. Male and female, he created them." Here, men and women are created together at the same time. There is no hierarchy, no delay, just shared divine image. But you've probably never heard a sermon about that one. The version most people know comes from Genesis chapter 2. In that version, God forms man from dust, plants the Garden of Eden, brings animals for Adam to name, and then makes Eve from Adam's rib. This second account feels more personal, even poetic. But it has been used for centuries to justify the idea that men come first and women are secondary. Why do people forget Genesis 1 and only remember Genesis 2? Because culture does the remembering for us. Art, liturgy, and religious teaching focused on the rib story, not the equal creation. Visual media reinforced that version, and patriarchal society had more reason to repeat the story that put men first. Biblical scholar Phyllis Tribal called this emphasis a text of terror, used to legitimize patriarchal power. And even the rib might not be what we think. The Hebrew word used is tesela, which could mean side or part, not necessarily a bone. Dr. Zioni Zevid explains, Eve was not made from a rib. She was taken from the man's side, and the reference is not anatomical but symbolic of partnership. Let's talk about the other Mandela effect hiding in plain sight. The apple. Most people will swear that Eve gave Adam an apple, but the Bible never says that. Genesis chapter 3 verse 6 says, "She took of its fruit and ate." No apple. Just fruit. So where did the apple come from? In Latin, the word malum can mean both evil and apple. So when the Bible was translated, people made assumptions. Then painters, especially during the Renaissance, reinforced that image. Elaine Pagels, a historian of early Christianity, notes, "Art did what words never did." The forbidden fruit became a literal apple because it fit the picture of woman as the temptress. Add thousands of children's books and cartoons, and now the fruit is always red and shiny. That's how myth becomes memory. What we're dealing with here isn't supernatural glitching, it's cultural editing, church doctrine, art and media, patriarchal repetition, simplified storytelling. Together, these have created false collective memories about some of the most important stories in human history. You remember an apple that was never there. You forgot the moment men and women were created as equals. But it doesn't stop with ancient texts. The Mandela Effect thrives in the modern world too, because once an idea is printed, aired, or posted, it becomes part of someone's reality. Take the infamous Jiffy peanut butter example. People insist it existed, and they're not entirely wrong, because real newspaper ads from decades ago printed it that way. That typo, branding error, or marketing slip got cemented in people's minds, then repeated, passed on, remembered, even when the real brand was just Jif. Memory isn't just about what happened. It's about what got published, seen, shared, and reinforced. So whether it's Renaissance art, R-rated Bible movies, misquoted sermons, or even podcasts like this one, every retelling leaves its mark until the copy becomes the canon. What if we change the story we tell? What if we started with Genesis 1 instead of Genesis 2? What if we taught that men and women were created together, equally, and that the so-called fall wasn't about shame, but about awakening? What if the Mandela Effect isn't proof of a broken reality, but a mirror showing us what we've chosen to forget? Reality didn't shift. Memory did. And sometimes the oldest Mandela effects aren't in cereal boxes or movie quotes. They're hiding in sacred texts and whispered through the ages. So thank you for joining us on this unexpected off-ramp from our usual paranormal highway. We promise, next stop, we'll be back to chasing cryptids through cornfields. But tonight we were chasing something even stranger. The stories we trust the most, and how they sometimes rewrite themselves inside our heads. Welcome to the fold.
The truth is out there, and it begins with you. Welcome to the Cosmic Fold, where we talk high strangeness. Call us at 928-288-2942. That's 928-288-2942. Or join us by video. If you're at a computer, just look for the link in the chat. Buckle up, sit around our virtual campfire, and let's get started.
Whoosh, we're here. Hey, how you doing?
And this is why eyewitness accounts are historically unreliable.
Exactly. And, you know, the reason it's, well, one of several reasons, I'll just pick the mundane one. You know, I keep seeing this constantly on YouTube and social media that, oh, there's this big, like, you know, 2 different Earths or something going on because of this so-called Mandela effect. And what it is, in our PowerPoint, will show that, you know, a lot of it is just typos.
Yeah. Except I am convinced that there's been a massive cover-up, and everyone in the world has hidden this, but I know for a fact that Sinbad played a genie in a movie.
That was one of them. And I didn't put that in the PowerPoint. You know, and when people show that, well, it wasn't true, people get very upset. And I think this is part of the problem, at least in the United States. I think worldwide that's going on.
Yeah.
Is that we've got all of these different realities that we believe in, and then we want to, you know, spice it up and call it the Mandela effect.
Yeah.
When it's just basically cultural.
Yeah. Every time I watch a movie and I see an actor or an actress that's, you know, getting up there in years, and it's a new movie, I was like, I thought they were dead. I sworn they were dead. I read an obituary somewhere.
You know, I was one of those with the Mandela effect. I thought he had died in the 80s.
Oh.
And it surprised me when he didn't. So in researching for, you know, tonight's show, it's like, okay, I could see why, you know, friends of mine and I kind of thought that.
Yeah.
And then some of the other ones like Jiffy peanut butter, that one I remembered as Jiffy.
Yeah.
And then when they had the whole big GIF thing going on about,
Oh,
memes, I looked it up and it's like, oh, okay, I had a wrong memory there. But sometimes, we have to look it up, and I don't know how many people do.
Probably not many. I'm not saying that, people in general are stubborn and set in their ways, but people in general are stubborn and set in their ways.
Well, yeah, and your memories
me.
are so real.
I know, right?
It's like with mine. I mean, I don't know. Maybe all my memories are false and I'm just making crap up. But it seems very real in my head.
We're living in the Matrix. We're living in the Matrix.
Well, we have a pretty big PowerPoint. For those new to the show, we've got Alan Day Stefanelli. How long have you guys been married? You just celebrated, what?
34 years.
34 years.
34 years. Congratulations. Yeah. And I'm Deborah. And so we have the show on Wednesday and Saturday nights. And slowly but surely, we're getting more people here. And if you'd like to join, I don't have the phone connected tonight, but I put the StreamYard link in the chat. So just click that and you can pop right in if you want to join us.
Yeah.
Yeah, buddy. We're non-judgmental, even though we sound like we are.
No, we're not at all.
Actually, we're not. I question myself all the time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you got to ask yourself about the Mandela effect. Is it memory or media? That whole peanut butter thing just cracks me up. What is the Mandela effect? Well, collective false memories named after people remembering Nelson Mandela dying in the 1980s, which we just covered. The hypothesis of media misreporting and emotionally framing memory. Emotional framing distort memory. So, yeah, it's what we think in here.
Yep, and the connections we make. So
yeah. Is it the Mandela effect or the Mandela effect?
It's the Mandela effect of the Mandela effect. It's reporting on this stuff.
Mainstream and social media turned a memory glitch into a pop culture mystery, fueling endless speculation about dozens of so-called Mandela effects while overlooking the real cause, misprints, repetition, and of course, emotional contact. We didn't just misremember history. We misremembered how memory works. And then the Today Show website, if you're watching, has different examples of Kit Kat, the Dash, the Monocle, and the eye of the guy from Monopoly, and of course, who could forget Pikachu?
The thing is, all of these memories, even of brand names, they're media, whether it's mainstream or social media, and especially new age media. Holy smokes, they're all saying it's like this Mandela, like some kind of cosmic thing, and we're going to prove it. So I've got my skeptic hat on today.
Me too. I got my skeptic haircut. Well, the brain reads what it expects, and there have been multiple documentaries and stories out there about how your brain fills in the gaps. So basically, according to research at Cambridge, now is that a Mandela effect?
I'm showing you how the brain works.
Oh, okay. According to research at Cambridge University, your brain reads context, not letters. Examples. This sentence is missing all the vowels. It doesn't make much difference. Yeah.
Well,
and all of these are wildly misspelled. What day?
Yeah.
Well, one thing I can see is that my brain is filling in pieces right now, which is what your brain does. We have to give you a picture. We can't just hang here in pieces. So
exactly.
I don't have my glasses on. It's very blurry, and all those misspellings, take out vowels, whatever. I can still read it. So my brain is filling in all the pieces I need, even though if you asked me to read this out loud, I'd probably be like, I got to get in here.
Gotta look. Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of what is going on here, especially like the Mandela, remembering like I did incorrectly that he had died in the 80s. I was filling in blanks.
Yeah. No, and you know what? I had thought that too for a long time until while we were in Panama, there's a lot of South Africans there. They're fleeing South Africa because of whatever they say. But I was explained rather forcefully that Nelson Mandela did not die in the 80s.
Yep.
So, I'm like, all right, yeah. Fruit of the Loom. Now, this one just blows my mind, okay? The imaginary cornucopia. Many people vividly remember the Fruit of the Loom logo with the cornucopia behind the fruit. But what if that memory is false? Let's explore the evolution of this iconic logo and the curious case of collective misremembering. Now, I'm sorry, there was a cornucopia there. I'm sorry, there had to be. Okay, maybe not.
So what did you guys remember the cornucopia?
I remembered the cornucopia.
I don't.
I distinctly remember the cornucopia. And it might have been on something, early on, that was a misprint or something, but I do remember seeing it. I don't remember seeing it on any of the Fruit of the Loom products, of which I bought.
See, I remembered it on the Fruit of the Loom stuff because I remember as a kid I was even trying to draw it because I thought it was cool looking.
Yeah, I saw
and that's
somewhere.
how you just fill in.
Yeah.
Like what Dave was saying, you just fill in the blanks of what you.
Like, why would there be fruit
there.
if there wasn't a cornucopia?
Yeah, exactly.
But now here's the story behind the Fruit of the Loom imaginary cornucopia brand. Never.
You just like saying that word.
What, cornucopia? It's a good word. It's a good cornucopia.
He's trying to say it as many times as possible.
The brand never used a cornucopia. Here's the 1948 logo in the enhanced image, and here's what we see. Okay, there's Fruit of the Loom, and there's it. If you're not watching, it's a banner. It says Fruit of the Loom, and there's a little bit of fruit in the middle on the top. A cluster of fruits, apples, grapes, possibly berries, is encircled in a medallion or a seal. There's no clearly defined cornucopia horn, no wicker texture, no horn shape tapering off in the background, no basket opening. The fruit is simply arranged in a pile, often surrounded by decorative scrolls or ribbons, which could resemble a horn-like flourish at a glance, but aren't one. I'm skeptical.
I remember, and I'm not a Fruit of the Loom wearer, but I did all those boys' clothes, my brother's clothes, my son's clothes, all my son's friends' clothes who stayed over. You know what I mean? And I just always remember it as fruit. I never saw anything else with it. And I looked at it, good Lord, more than a mother should.
That's because you're our skeptic.
Wow. Well, what are you going to do, right? I still see it in my head. So, that's I guess.
That's right.
That's my problem, right? 1996, Wall Street and the cornucopia reference. Here, the word cornucopia appears in a financial headline, not as a logo, but as a metaphor. This may reinforce the cornucopia association subconsciously. From the Wall Street Journal, the headline reads, Fruit of the Loom bringing investors cornucopia. And then I'm not going to read that. I'm not going to read
you don't have to read the article. It's just how the headline is.
Yeah.
And so many of us look at headlines.
In 96, I sure the hell wish I bought Fruit of the Loom stock for $24 a share. So why do so many people remember a cornucopia? This is the classic Mandela Effect territory. Here are a few likely contributors. Semantic association. The word fruit and loom naturally evokes imagery like cornucopias, symbols of bounty and harvest. Visual confusion. Many early logos had ornate frames and scrolls that in memory may be mistaken for a horn shape. False memory, reinforcement. People may have seen parody versions of the logo or fan recreations that included a cornucopia. Once that image is stored, the brain backdates it, and then general symbol confusion. Cornucopia may appear frequently in other logos and Thanksgiving decorations, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Fruit Loops or Fruit Loops. Is it F-R-O-O-T loops or F-R-U-I-T loops? Kellogg cereal. Twisted reality. Many people swear it was always Froot Loops, the common spelling of fruit. After all, it's a cereal made of fruit-flavored rings, right? But check your pantry or your memories. It's fruit.
Do you guys remember this one? I never
Yeah.
buy cereal, so I don't know. I
I
didn't relate to
remember.
this.
I remember that. Yeah, I thought it was fruit, like regular fruit, until I watched a movie with my kids. Where was Froot in? Spy Kids? The Thumbs? Wasn't that Spy Kids?
Oh,
Yeah. It was
Yeah,
Spy
I
Kids.
believe
Yeah,
so.
yeah, a kids movie that had a character who used the name Froot, F-R-O-O-P, and then I remember reading, is it Froot Loops? And I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. And then I was in the grocery store and I looked and hung my head in shame and walked away, knowing I had been wrong for 5 freaking decades.
I love it.
Oh my God. Yeah. So from the beginning, the cereal was officially spelled Froot Loops, F-R-O-O-T. From the U.S. to Canada, retailers were constantly advertising Froot Loops, spelled F-R-U-I-T, despite the actual cereal being labeled Fruit, F-R-O-O-T, Loops. And
Yep, and that ad is hard to see, but it's got it spelled the wrong way on.
Froot Loops, yeah.
So no wonder people thought that's how it is, because that's what they were reading.
Yeah.
This one's a classic here.
Yeah. This ad makes the point perfectly. In a June 12th, 1991 ad, the Lehigh Free Press in Utah, even when showing the actual Froot Loops box, the newspaper still listed it as Froot Loops, F-R-U-I-T. This visual contradiction is a perfect example of how copy errors become memory canon.
I think that's exactly what happened. Somebody went, that's not how you spell that.
Exactly. Or you're
You got to realize right now we live in the age also of pick up anything that might be made by somebody that's a fake on purpose. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so it's like, but when you find, and I used to do enough sales flyer ads that I am familiar with some of the very ads that get brought up, because I'm like, I used to see that every week. I was a grocery shopping mom and needed every point and coupon.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I can see where a lot of that would come from.
Yeah.
That in that local, give me a piece of clip art. That's what they ran with, because they had to pay to print their own papers there unless they were part of a chain. Now everybody's part of a chain now, but not back then.
Yep. And even with that, though, it's like the chain of Froot Loops. I mean, they actually show the box spelled one way and type it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Right.
And
once we see it one way, we can't forget.
Yeah. So you can't really blame people, for...
No.
That's what I'm saying. It's a conundrum.
Well, phonetic assumption plus editorial errors explain very well the Mandela effect with the Froot Loops.
I have to admit, I have never had a Froot Loop in my life.
Well, I will tell you
I've never eaten one. Are they good?
They're sugar.
They're sugar. Here's the thing.
You're just eating sugar.
They all taste the same.
All of them.
They're not like the blue tastes like blueberry and the red tastes like cherry. They all taste exactly the same. It's just color.
It's colored sugar.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, little round wheels of.
Your audience is children who eat stuff off the floor.
Right.
They love little round sugar things.
Yeah, they don't care.
True.
And bright colors.
Jif or Jiffy peanut butter. Now, this one I've seen a lot on the interwebs, on social media. Thousands of people remember Jiffy peanut butter. Some even say they made sandwiches with it, but officially it never existed. Not once ever. Or did it? As you'll see in the next slides, newspapers and recipes use Jiffy. Confusion with Jiffy baking mix. False hybrid brand. Yeah,
I could see the confusion, actually.
Yeah.
I didn't hear about the confusion.
Well, also Jiffy Pop, popcorn. Yeah. But I remember it being Jif only because I remember the commercial, Choosy Mothers Choose Jif.
Okay.
That just stuck in there. So I never knew it as Jiffy. But Jiffy does make little boxes of cornbread.
Yeah.
And then there's Jiffy Pop popcorn, you know.
We like their sweet cornbread. And
Yeah,
I'd serve it with chili night all the time.
Oh, that sounds good. But
It was
yeah,
sweet
it wasn't
cornbread. Really was good.
until like a year ago. I mean, I thought, you know, over 60 years, I really thought it was Jiffy. I honestly thought that's what it was. So,
No, I believe, because I didn't have anything that was Jiffy except for the two things that I used, and we had Jif peanut butter all the time. So I always knew it was Jif, as Jif.
And here's a couple of examples. If you're watching, there's a recipe here for peanut butter patties, and it says 1 small jar of Jiffy peanut butter, mix Jiffy peanut butter, Jiffy, Jiffy, Jiffy. And then to the right of your screen there, it says check everyday prices on this ad, which I'm trying to figure out what store that's from.
it's hard to read.
But it says Jiffy peanut butter, 12-ounce jar. Jiffy peanut butter, 18. Oh my gosh, 47 cents?
I know these are old ads. I went way back in the time machine to find
10
some of
cent
this.
sale. Sliced beets. Sliced beets still aren't worth 10 cents, but that's just my personal opinion. Here we see Jif and Jiffy side by side. There's the corn muffin mix. Yeah. Jif for peanut butter, Jiffy for muffin mixing. Both brands together may have contributed to the merge in memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. They also make blueberry muffins too. They're really good and they're really easy to make.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
They're very
Do you
good.
put real blueberries in it, or
No,
does
it's
it
a
come in
mix.
the
It's
box?
just a mix.
Oh.
Just a mix.
You add water or
okay.
milk and mix it up and throw it in some cupcake pans, and you got
No,
muffin.
this is a sugar addict snack. This is not a regular muffin, okay? If you're looking nice breakfast, this ain't it.
Okay.
If you're looking to eat cheap sugar, that's where you go.
Why do you have diabetes, Al? Even there's a 2006 broadcast comedy column that casually referred to the Diet Coke, AOL, Jiffy Peanut Butter, Hellman's Mayonnaise Discovery Shuttle. Yeah. Humor, yes, but proof that Jiffy lived rent-free in the cultural consciousness.
Yeah, he was going about, and I've seen that too. It's like cars and buses. They're just full of all of these ads for whatever.
Okay. Looney Tunes or Looney Tunes? I was on the wrong side of this forever.
I've seen both.
The official name is Looney Tunes, Looney Tunes.
Tunes.
Tunes, but articles and logic suggest tunes because, you know, they're cartoons. Looney Tunes feels right. After all, they are cartoons, but Warner Brothers always spelled it tunes, Tunes, a nod to the musical shorts of the 1930s.
I've seen it as both, but I used to see the old ones and more the ones I see popping up. So that's what I mean. I don't know who grabs clip art or whatever.
Yeah.
I've been seeing it that other way, more recent in life.
Yeah.
Well, this slide will prove your point, Day.
Nickelodeon. Here's a newspaper headline from the Gannett Suburban Newspaper, Thursday, May 23rd, 1991. Nickelodeon plans Memorial Day tribute to Looney Tunes, Toons. That's this article repeatedly refers to them as Looney Tunes, Toons. And this piece was printed across multiple outlets, embedding the wrong spelling into the public consciousness.
Yeah.
And when this is actually when it's actually Nickelodeon that's doing it, and they're spelling it wrong, and
they should know better. Really, shame on you.
Well, see, part of the reason I knew, and around this time, in the previous few years, to when everything started to change, you know, I was still watching our generation's update Looney Tunes, and that Tunes was always across there. But I had a baby in 1988. We got married in 1991. And then all of a sudden, a different Tunes kept showing up all over Nickelodeon.
Yep. And they were probably just like that. So, yeah, that just proved your point there.
Yeah, I watched Nick at Night when I was pregnant because I was way too big and I was having back problems. So I couldn't really go anywhere at the end there because I was so big. And so I watched tons of Nickelodeon and shows that if I hadn't, I wouldn't know what Al was referring to half the time. but because there's a generation gap here.
Gen X, boomer.
I fell in love with the Carol Burnett show, and it was the 80s, and I was madly in love with it, and it was from older.
Oh, it was wonderful.
Remember that?
I mean, a lot of those old ones are good.
Laughing was hysterical.
Oh, I love that show.
Oh, I love that show.
You know, the one I really liked as an adult, I mean, I liked it as a kid, but as an adult, I really appreciated the humor, was Bullwinkle.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. That one, it's very funny, and it's got a lot of shade to that one. I like that one.
Was it Rocket Raccoon, Bullwinkle, and Rocket J. Squirrel? There you go.
Yep.
Rocket J. Squirrel.
You call us Moose and Squirrel.
Moose and Squirrel, yeah. We've used that Moose and Squirrel thing a lot.
For the Supernatural Boys.
Yeah. Monopoly Man's missing monocle. This blew my mind, okay? Ask anyone to describe the Monopoly Man, top hat, cane, mustache, and a monocle, right? Except he's never worn one, not once ever. And I had done, over my entire life, up until recently, a lot of artwork, a lot of drawing, a lot of cartoons, a lot of pencil, charcoal crap like that. And I had done a whole series of drawings featuring the Monopoly Man in different situations, you know, driving a car, parachuting. And every single drawing I made, he had the monocle.
Yep.
Every single one. That's how
I remembered it that way too. And I mean, a friend of mine who recently died, I used to always tease him, like, you look just like the Monopoly Man. You just need one more, you know, take half your glasses off and you'll look just like him. I've just always thought that.
On the other side of that coin, I don't ever remember Mr. Peanut having a monocle.
Yep. And to your point there, that's where they say it came from.
Yeah.
The memory probably formed from, again, visual overlap with Mr. Peanut, who does wear a monocle. Did not know that. The use of monocles is a symbol of wealth in cartoons and editorial mistakes, pop culture jokes, repeating the myth. And if you look at Monopoly Man is obsessed, blah, 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 go direct to holiday fun, there's no monocle.
And the thing is, why I pulled this particular one is I don't remember having a go directly to holiday fun. I thought it was go directly to jail. Do not pass go.
Yeah. The only go directly I remember was jail.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, you know, that whatever.
Yeah. Everybody wanted that get out of jail free card.
That's right.
2024 newspaper column from the Atlanta Constitution. Actually, it's the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, but, you know, that's okay. Openly refers to the 1934 figure as the monocle-eyed money man. That's how deeply the false image had already embedded itself in public consciousness. And there's a story of their name game reveals one rich uncle. And it says, rich Uncle Pennybags.
What?
Rich Uncle Pennybags.
Oh.
I remember that. For some reason, it's floating around in whatever's in here.
Yep, but he says right in there, it's the reviled moniker for the monocle-eyed money man.
Yeah.
Everyone thought that.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, man, I'll tell you what. Oscar Mayer or Oscar Mayer, M-A-Y-E-R or M-E-Y-E-R. Most people remember singing that song. My baloney has a first name. It's always C-A-R. But what came next? M-A-Y-E-R? Not M-A-Y-E-R. Yet millions remember the other way. Sound overrules spelling in public memory. Right? So everyone thinks it's Meyer, M-A-Y-E-R, but not Meyer, M-E-Y-E-R. Rather,
it's actually M-A-Y-E-R.
M-A-Y-E-R. Yeah.
And it's confusing because I remember singing that song and we would always we couldn't figure, we'd all stumble because it was like we couldn't remember which one it's supposed to be.
Right.
But here's another of those ads. You don't have to read that, but just look at how much of it there is.
Food for Less has an ad out, or had an ad out probably a while ago. Go looking at the oh my God, Swift Premium Sizzling, $1.75. Anyway, grocery store ads published in newspapers throughout the country, often printed N-E-Y-E-R, This Food for Less ad doesn't just make the mistake once. It lists Oscar Mayer misspelled repeatedly across various meat products.
Yep.
For shoppers, this became the official version. I always knew it as Mayer, mainly because I was born in May. And every time I saw those three letters together, I was like, oh, it's my birthday. But Oscar
I don't
Mayer.
know. I remember the song, and it was Mayer.
Yeah.
But so recently,
Yeah,
when
that song too. Yeah.
when we were talking about, but that's where I was in Florida, because when I hung out other people from up north, they had a totally different version. By the way, that's the other thing. Where did you come from versus where you are? That's going to determine if you're real rural and you have like one news station within 30 miles of your place and it's very small, they're going to have more typos.
Exactly.
Than major feed through. So you have to understand some of this is very regional.
Yeah. I have a friend in Panama. He's got to be about 100 years old now.
Oh,
Paul?
yeah.
Got to be. Yeah, anyway, his last name is Myers. This is how he introduced himself. Hey, my name is Paul Myers, M-Y E-R-S. No E, no A, M-Y-E-R, Myers.
Yeah.
And he always made sure to let everyone know that.
Well, it's so easy to do. Well, just like Atlanta Journal-Constitution, I forget the journal, and then people think that's what it is.
Got a little funny
Very
story.
Very easy
about...
to do.
Wait.
Yeah.
Fun fact, Oscar Mayer related. Just because recently we were looking into different things to do as we take different directions with what we're going to be doing work-wise. I looked into it. The Wienermobile. There's 5 of them. They will pay you $40,000 a year to drive this Wienermobile to every little expo that you're supposed to on your route and set up little tents and cook and give out hot dogs. They'll pay for your hotel and your per diem if you will spend 1 year driving the Wienermobile.
Hey, it's Kim.
Kind of fun.
Kim,
Hey,
Steve. Hey, Kim, Steve. Kim, Steve, Kim. Yeah, M-A-Y-E-R.
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm from Florida too,
yeah.
so it depends on where you're from.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we had it right in Wisconsin too. It was kind of like what Al was saying too. Everyone would, because everyone's Meyer and those kind of names were all confusing. So you'd spell it out. But as I got older, as I was sitting here doing this PowerPoint, I was like, what was that song? I couldn't remember. I had to look it up. So, but I never buy that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Steve and Kim.
Well, it's Kim on Steve's account. Steve and Kim are married. They're friends of ours.
There are in-laws.
There are daughters' husbands' parents. So they're friend-in-laws.
There are in-laws.
There are in-laws. And they are absolutely adorable. So Oscar Mayer again. This article, taken from some newspaper at some point, is about a hot dog mascot and a baloney singing contest. So another thing, is it baloney or Bologna? Clearly involving the real brand, yet the columnist calls it Oscar Mayer with an E, with 2 E's, over and over again. How could a reader come away remembering anything less? Shame on you, Doug Mason.
And he's talking about what is it called? Day a wiener. What is it?
Wienermobile.
He's talking about it.
It's the Wienermobile. Yeah.
And that's what he's talking about there.
If we didn't have a dog, it'd kind of be cool,
Oh, I think it would be fun.
But
the Mandela Effect's namesake. Many Mandela effects are the result of a widespread misreporting or common editorial habit, e.g. Froot Loops, Jiffy, Oscar Mayer, Looney Tunes, blah, blah, that reinforce incorrect memories in readers' minds. This works brilliantly for brand-based Mandela effects, but when it comes to the Mandela effect's namesake, Nelson Mandela's supposed death in prison in the 1980s, we run into a problem. There's no news article from a major outlet actually declaring that Nelson Mandela died before 2013. So this kind of,
destroys my theory in a way.
Well, yeah.
Until we get into it.
Mandela's story wasn't misread. It was emotionally resolved. Death was inferred, not reported. Yeah.
You don't have to try to read those news articles. It's just I pulled a bunch of them, and it's interesting what they were doing.
Yeah. So, well, semantic priming and association is something that's explained as news stories, often placed Mandela's name near words like death, violence, and hopelessness, even without direct claims. Our brains link repeated pairings. So Mandela plus death starts to feel familiar and later misremembered as a fact. Emotional closure from heavy framing. 1980s media coverage was emotionally intense. Funerals, bans, and executions. Repeated headlines like "No hope for Mandela's release" or "Sentenced to death tomorrow" pushed our brains to mentally close the loop, and many simply assumed he died in prison. And then, as we discussed earlier, memory fills in the gaps. Like the scrambled word reading example, the brain fills in unclear details with context. So when asked what happened to Mandela back then, years of bleak coverage led the mind to answer, he must have died, even if they never saw those words. And there's a couple of examples of some articles here.
I looked at hundreds of them, and and I was thinking back to that time. So why would I remember it that way? Well, I was going to college full time and working full time, very little sleep. So basically, just scan the headlines in the newspaper. So of course, I'm gonna, not spend time on all the details and remember it wrong. So I wonder how many people that's true for.
That's in contrast to all the free time you have now.
But I don't get graded on this stuff.
True. Now, the reverse Mandela effect, when truth is forgotten on purpose. That could be a whole show on that. Not all memory errors are about seeing something that wasn't there. Sometimes people don't see what was because they've been trained not to. For decades, pilots, military officials, and scientists hesitated to report unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs, out of the fear of ridicule or involuntary career change, or career damage, rather. The belief that UFOs aren't real became so culturally dominant that it erased honest accounts from the conversation. It isn't a false memory. It's a culturally suppressed reality. And you could thank a lot of that. You could thank the church for a lot of that. They can't be aliens. They can't be people other than us.
Well, and then the other thing too, so many of these like black ops and things like that. I mean, it's just now getting disclosed, some of this stuff. And, and even now, a lot of these people are afraid to say anything for being viewed as tinfoil hatty. Yeah. So it still goes on. I've got a couple other ideas on this one too.
Wait, what is it you used to say? Just because I'm paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get me.
Right?
That's true.
You used to say that to me all the time.
That's true. Oh, man. Here's more examples of the reverse Mandela effect, a.k.a. when truth is forgotten on purpose. The Mothman Panic of 1966 to 1967. What was suppressed? Dozens of credible witnesses in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, reported seeing a winged humanoid before the Silver Bridge collapse. Why it faded? News media covered the tragedy but downplayed or dismissed the entity. The myth was folded into folklore, not inquiry. That was a really good movie, too.
It was, and that's one of those. That's one of those for me that it's like, okay, maybe, I don't know if it was like an actual Mothman or what it was, but a lot of people kept saying that they saw this. And so it's like, maybe it's like seeing Jiffy instead of Jiff or whatever, but everybody was seeing something. And that, in my opinion, should have been looked into.
Yeah, should have.
So, and this whole reverse Mandela effect, that's a term I made up. It's not a real term.
Oh,
but
well, look at you coining phrases and everything. Past life memories in children, studied but dismissed. What was suppressed? The University of Virginia has documented over 2,500 cases of children, often between the age of 2 and 6, some of whom recalled past lives with verifiable details such as names, hometowns, and death circumstances that matched real deceased individuals. Why it faded? Well, despite rigorous documentation by researchers like Dr. Ian Stevenson and Dr. Jim Tucker at the University of Virginia, the mainstream scientific community has largely ignored or mocked the findings. Even parents often discourage children from speaking about these memories, leading to early repression. And why does this matter to the reverse Mandela effect? It's not a false memory. It's an actively forgotten truth, a form of institutional amnesia, where the data exists, but the system refuses to integrate it.
That Ian Stevenson, their research is, we discuss on one of the Wednesday night shows. It's very interesting. He used a scientific method. He had some people challenge. He was able to prove that he wasn't making this stuff up, that some of these little kids actually were saying things that there's no way that they could have known.
Right, yeah.
And so, it's sad that people say, well, that doesn't exist, but, it does.
Meta conclusion. When the copy becomes canon. Okay, first you got misprints, repetition, and emotional framing equals false memories, often on a massive scale, like GIF and all that. Culturally repressed memories and institutional amnesia create a reverse Mandela effect, now forever referred to as the RME.
Yes, I love it. We've got a new thing. You better copyright it, Al.
I know, right? The brain did its job with flawed data. That's basically what it comes down to. What was that line from? God, yeah. What was that line from that movie back then? That line from that movie.
Purple.
Purple. Yes, this is my brain fogging out on me. Men in Black. To where.
Yes.
Yeah, where Agent K is talking to Will Smith and he says, 1,500 years ago, everyone knew that. And then he went on with this thing. Imagine what we'll know tomorrow.
Yep.
So, yeah. Your memory has been debugged. Boom.
That's our conclusion of that. So,
yeah.
For me, I think this is a really big problem, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Because look at now, it's like Gulf of America, we're supposed to call it, instead of Gulf of Mexico.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Exactly. But, you see how just changing words, and some people will just go along with it, others won't.
Yeah.
And then when you want to use that to control other people, I think it's very dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't the reverse Mandela effect what's basically happening with our government right at the moment? They're putting
it
never happened.
Yes, and that's why I brought that up.
I heard about that. That's why you flood on every channel, even if there's no way you actually care if you're on that channel.
Yeah.
But you're trying to get that audience.
Mm-hmm.
And they blanket code these implanted ideas that this was his idea, even though it went into law the year before. Biden did it. He gets to sit there and take credit, and they keep flooding the media with that. So now you believe that.
Exactly.
It's not. It's frustrating now. How far we've come with AI now is scary.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's harder for us as we age that we do suffer memory issues. It makes it 100 times worse when things are very inconsistent, because then we get confused. You got to remember, for every decade, you lose more space that you know what is going on in.
Right now, I'm in this room.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, and then throw a traumatic brain injury on top of that. I mean, I had lost decades of memory. People could just tell me stuff and I would believe them because all that memory was wiped out after a TBI. And then some of it's coming back now. So that's why I like books, to be honest with you. They're tangible. They're harder to just manipulate, although you can manipulate books too, or manipulate information in books, but it's less likely than with AI, which is going to become AGI. And then this constant visual media. That was it you guys that said, or was it on a Wednesday show, that all you have to really do is repeat something 3 times and somebody will believe it?
Yeah. And it would also, if you're repeating it around any of your devices, whatever you're discussing shows up in your shopping feed, in your news feed, in your whatever you're talking about. They're trying to get you involved in whatever they have going because you're being like targeted marketing, I guess.
So you're going to have peanut butter ads, Fruit Loops.
Yeah.
Actually,
the
our
Fruit
feed
of the
is now
Loops.
going to be full of Mandela Effect videos.
Mhm.
We're going to get flooded with
Yeah.
them.
It's true how that
Everybody's listening
works.
to you, and I made a joke about it, and Siri laughed, and Alexa laughed.
I would just say, in general, I don't trust the human memory. Just
I don't either.
because it's too easy to knock us around, and then as we age, well, those things that were really harsh and made you feel gross at the moment now have been 30 years ago, and you think about it differently, and it doesn't seem like it was that bad. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So even what you remember probably didn't happen the way you think it did in some ways.
Yep.
You just got to be able to look back at it and go, okay.
Oh, technically, now Kim writes in, technically it could be called the Gulf of the Americas, since Mexico is part of North America. Yeah, I've had this, Kim, I've had this conversation with a lot of people. There are over 200 countries in the Americas,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and, you know,
We just called it the Gulf too, where I'm from.
yeah.
Then again, we're from Florida.
But good, thanks. This is what being married is all about. I get an itch scratch. Yeah.
But Kim raises a really good point
yeah,
there. It
exactly.
makes sense. And that's not divisive or hateful or
No,
anything.
no,
Just call
it's
it the
not.
Gulf or the Gulf of the Americas.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Good point.
And that's the problem with this stuff now. I mean, it's pretty innocent until it's used as a weapon. And that's where I have a problem with this. And, you know, people are walking around living in very different realities. And even you get a group of people at a reunion and you talk about an event 20 years ago, all of us have a completely different memory of whatever
Exactly.
happened.
Yeah.
But then when it's in the current sphere and actively put out there,
Yeah.
so that people in real time are believing in two separate realities, that's a problem.
It is. It is. Especially my brain is convinced that 20 years ago was the 80s.
I had to think about that. That makes sense to me until I thought about it. It's true. And, you know, and that's another reason I wanted to bring this whole topic up too, is that I'm watching this pattern as we do the Cosmic Fold Paranormal Highway, how similar so many of these stories are.
Yeah.
From state to state to state.
Mhm.
And so were these things based on movies or was it just word of mouth? Oh, I saw that and it's a good story. And you kind of like the fishing tale, you know, and then you repeat it and then it spreads and it becomes your own personal experience.
This is why those videos are so important. But as Dave mentioned, with the way AI is now, it's very, very difficult to ascertain whether or not something, even if it looks like footage from the old black and white era, it could still be fake. I have an app on my phone called Super 8, and it's a photo manipulation app. I've had it for about, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. And you just film something on your phone and it turns it into what looks like an authentic, 8mm movie from like the 60s and 70s.
Yep.
Or you can even have it go older than that to look like, the old movies from the 20s and 30s. And it is so authentic looking. It's just so authentic looking. So it's hard to trust your own brain.
Well, and then AI is like filling in the gaps on everything. Like, we use Microsoft Word work-wise, right? And so now it just pops up, Copilot does. I can summarize this document for me. Let me write this document for you. It's like, no, I don't want you to. I want to write this so I know, what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
And so the more we get overwhelmed with a machine doing all of our thinking for us, it makes it even harder to discern what's real and what's not.
Yeah, it's crazy that, that when I'm putting something on the marketplace, for example, I want to sell something, it always asks me, would you like AI to write the ad for you?
Yeah.
No, I can write an ad. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'll do it myself.
So next week we'll go back to our, because Connecticut really does have a lot of kind of cool
Connecticut
stories.
Part 2.
Yeah, but I just wanted to take a break from doing that. I was getting bored of doing those, and it's like, I can only take so many cryptids per month.
I hear that.
Now the haunted houses, those are different, especially if it's got a backstory.
Oh no, those are very cool. Those are very cool. We discussed over and over again on this program about how certain circumstances or situations or locations give you different, you get the heebie-jeebies, the hair in the back of your head stands up, you can feel a heaviness, whatever. And that's very real. I don't think that's at all.
I think that empathy or that sense, this, your gut feeling, whatever that is going to become more and more important, because you sort of intuit sometimes with an AI generated video or picture or whatever. It's like something about it doesn't feel, you almost have to go by your feelings instead of logic to discern what's real and what's not, which is exactly the opposite of what we've been taught. You need to be logical. Your feelings will deceive you, but I'm starting to think we may have to turn that around a little bit.
And that circles back to the Mandela Effect.
Yeah. Which again, that was emotional. But if you can look things up though, and just have the humility to say, you know what, I might be wrong. Let me look that up.
Yeah. Okay, but right now, what's going on is a whole bunch of documents are being removed and censored, and things are being changed.
Yes, in the National
Archives. It's a huge thing going on, and trying to look at a different perspective of history of what has gone on in the last decade. And so that's what I mean. I don't know how they're going to be able to decipher at their level when they go back to sort this through.
I don't get it. I know that.
That's why I keep paper copies of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because I have to do a lot of historical research to in the area that I work to prove a water right.
Right.
And so we've got documents from the 1800s and that kind of stuff. And we keep the paper copies because of that. But you'd think, to your point, Dave, like Oklahoma, isn't it? Where they're just completely rewriting recent history. And that's supposed to be taught in the public schools now.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, when they taught us in elementary school a lifetime ago, that the the reason for the Civil War was slavery. They taught this in New York City public schools. Now you can't find, it's getting harder and harder to find that. They're coming up with all kinds of other things for it. But, that is not a Mandela effect. You can still find those old textbooks on microfilm.
Yes.
Or microfiche, if you want to be fancy, bougie.
Exactly. I'm trying to find an old microfilm or microfiche reader. So if you know of something, let me know, because we've got a bunch of records that are on microfilm or fiche, whatever, the square ones.
And then
fiche?
Yeah. Then you have your brain making connections to things. Like right now, the movie Speed is in my head with Keanu Reeves and what's her name? Sandra Bullock. Because I'm looking at you through a camera lens from an up angle, and you're wearing a Wildcats t-shirt.
Yeah, a friend of mine's son played on their team, so it's true though how that works. So anyway, any other comments? Otherwise, I'll close this out.
No, I will go to my grave believing that Sinbad was played a genie in a movie.
Oh, I love it. Well, I appreciate you guys so much coming on tonight. And Kim, thanks for joining us. And I know we get a lot of people that watch it after the live. So just thank you guys too for being here. And I'll see you next Saturday.
All right. See ya.
All right.
Ta-da.
Night.
Night.
Thanks so much for joining us. We love hearing your stories, so tell your friends so they can join the party. For show notes and our forum of high strangeness, visit cosmicfold.com. Remember, Cosmic Fold airs live on Wednesday and Saturday nights, so be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell to know when we're on air. Thanks again and have a great evening.